doesn't like to be cheated.
In this video, we are going to talk about the Final Destination 5 movie released in 2011. We will discuss the movie story, summarize plot, and explore cast and characters. We will also discuss about the reviews of the movie and personal reactions. So, let's begin. The movie Final Destination Part 5 is directed by Steve Gall, produced by Craig Perry and Warren Zite, written by Eric Hessler, starring Nicholas DeGosto, Emma Bell, Miles Fisher, Erlin, and David Ketcher, Tony Todd, and others. Music by Brian Taylor. cinematography by Brian Pearson, editing by Eric Searn. Final Destination 5 is a 2011 American horror film written by Eric Hesson and directed by Stephen Coyle. It is the fifth installment of the Final Destination franchise. It stars Nicholas D'Agosto, Emma Bell, Miles Fisher, Erlyn, David Kocher, and Tony Todd. Despite the Final Destination 2009 being announced as the final film in the franchise, that film's financial success led to the development of Final Destination 5, which began in 2010. Filming took place in Vancouver as with the first three installments. It is also the second film in the franchise to be shot in 3D. Final Destination 5 was theatrical release on August 12, 2011 and on DVD on December 27, 2011 by Warner Bros. Pictures and New Line Cinema. The film received mixed reviews from critics and grossed $157 million worldwide, becoming the second highest grossing film in the franchise. A sixth installment, Final Destination Bloodline, is scheduled to be released in 2025. Sam Lawton and his colleagues are on their way to a company retreat when he gets a vision of bridge collapse that will kill him and several of his colleagues. Just as he manages to evacuate everyone on the bus, the disaster does happen. But they are not out of the clearing yet, as death comes to claim what is his in the bloodiest of way. So what is the plot of the movie? On his way to a company retreat with his colleagues, Sam Lawton is sitting in the bus. As the bus is crossing the North Bay Bridge, cracks caused by construction work result in structural failure. This results in the bridge breaking apart and the cable being torn off. One of his colleagues, Sandy Hopper, jumps over a roadblock and grabs the railing, only for the structure beneath her to collapse. As she falls down, she is impaled on the mast of passing sailing boat. Sam quickly snaps Peter Frankden, Sandy's boyfriend, back to reality to tell him to follow. It is only then that they realize that they have forgotten Isaac Palmer on the bus, who is dragged into water. When the bus splashes into the North Bay, meanwhile, Olivia Castle runs into a man and loses her glasses, disabling her completely. Sam tries to save his ex-girlfriend Molly Harper and is able to get on the other side, but instead of saving himself, he goes to help her, while Peter flees from falling debris on the bridge. As she tries to crawl over, however, the beam breaks and she slides off, falling into the water. Although initially able to survive the fall, she is killed when a car falls on her. Shocked, Sam looks into the deep but is called by Nathan Sears and Dennis Lapman and turns around to see Nathan begin hit a loose cable that kills him. Dennis is stunned just as more of the bridge start to give in, almost throwing him over the side. As he holds on for dear life, a tank with hot tar is kicked over by another shock, engulfing Dennis. Burned alive, Dennis falls in the river. Peter joins Sam and together they manage to jump to the railing of the bridge and escape just in time. When the part of the bridge they were standing on collapses completely as they climb up, a truck with iron rods slips. The rods impale Peter before a plate on the truck drops, cutting Sam in half. It is then that Sam wakes up and realizes it was just a vision and that nothing has happened yet. He evacuates a bus just in time as the disaster he saw in the vision take place seconds later, killing dozens in the process. But by evacuating the bus, he saved the lives of Candace, Isaac, Olivia, Nathan, Dennis, and Peter. Molly was also saved, but she didn't die in the original vision and would have survived no matter what. FBI agent Jim Block, who is tasked with investigating the disaster, believes that it is a terrorist attack. Although he doesn't believe Sam to be responsible for this, he does promise him to keep an eye on him. Later at the memorial service, they are approached by the coroner, William Bloodworth, Bloodworth warns them that death doesn't like to be cheated and therefore they should be extra careful. Believing the man to be talking nonsense, they ignore him and leave. But soon his warning comes true. Peter goes to Koenig's gymnastic process. Through a faulty ceiling fan, a screw drops on the balance beam, after which a fellow gymnastic steps on the screw, hurting her foot and falling off the beam. In her fall, she bowls over a ball with white powder for grip. Sandys, who is practicing on the uneven bars, is caught in the dust, cut, and let go of the bars on the worst moment possible. She falls as she crashes into the ground. Her neck, spine, and legs are broken, with her back having snapped in half. This leaves Peter devastated. The next day, after stealing a coupon, Isaac goes to Chinese spa resort, making himself very unpopular with his denigrating behavior. Under the impression that they don't understand English, he is given his acupuncture treatment. When he complains about the needle not being sterilized, the masseuse immediately obliged, revealing herself to be able to understand English. He continued with his racist comments, much to the annoyances of misuses. When he is called on the phone, which is put on vibrate, the missus tells him that he cannot call during the session and places his phone on a shelf next to candle. When the missus leaving behind so he can sleep for 30 minutes with needle in place, he is rather immobile with the wind causes a piece of burning incense to fall on a towel, lightening it. When nobody reacts to his screams, he tries to move only to fall face first on the ground, driving the needles deeper. It also causes the bottle of alcohol used to sterilize the needles to fall and spill on the ground, drenching him and most of the room in process. Although he is in horrible pain due to the fall and he tries to remove the needles, but realizing how painful this is, he quits after one. Just as he is at another door, his phone vibrates again, knocking a candle from the shelf that ignites the alcohol, knocking him against the wall. Falling on several shelves on the wall, believing to have survived, however, he signs in relief only for another shelf to give in and dropping a massive statue of Buddha on his head, crushing his head beneath its weight. When Sam and Molly discover that after Koenig's accident Isaac died at the spa, they are greeted by Bloodworth again. Sam confronts him as he warned them before and seems to know more about this. Bloodworth explains again that death wants their life and that if they wish to truly cheat death, they must kill someone who was never meant to die on the bridge. This way, they would switch places with the person they killed and get their remaining lifespan. Sam gazed over the list of the people who could have died on the bridge in chronological order and realized that the Sandys and Isaac dead, Olivia is the next person, and just on that day, she goes to the eye surgery clinic to treat her myopia. When she enters the cabinet, she is anxious when she sees the chair. The surgeon noticed this, and when she asks why there are stuffed animals on the shelves, he explained it is for younger patients, but also for those who are scared of procedure. Offering her a beer to confront her in her anxiety, she accidentally pours off a bad eye of the teddy bear which falls on the ground. Just as she is strapped into the chair with a laser ready to start to do its work, the surgeon discovers that there are files missing from her dossier. While he goes to fetch them, a cup of water on a water cooler drops on a power outlet, leading to a chain reaction that causes the laser to malfunction and power up beyond what is necessary for the operation, exceeding the max value of 5 milliwatt dramatically. The malfunction causes vibration, and as Olivia tries to grab the controller used for the operation, trying to save it from falling, she actually causes just that to happen. activating the laser that starts to sear both her eye and hand. Eventually, she is able to escape the contraption. Just as Sam and Molly arrive to save her, in agony and panic, she carries out for help up trip on the bed eye and falls through the window. She lands on a parked car, killing her instantly and causing her eye to pop out of its socket. No longer able to deny the fact that death is chasing them, Sam and Molly study its design again and realize that Nathan is the next on death list. At the moment, Nathan and turn to the plant where they worked and was sitting in the control room. When he called co-worker Roy Carson to the control room, Nathan has a strange feeling that something is wrong and sees static discharge at a crane. But he is quickly ambushed by Roy, who wants to know what his problem is. When Nathan asks Roy about his time card, Roy reacts furious, and what follows is a discussion about cutting hours. As Roy is scolding him, the crane moves and Nathan realizes that what he saw was no simple static discharge but a malfunctioning of the crane. As he tries to warn Roy, the man keeps yelling at him. As the lifting hook dangles above them, Nathan tries to convince Roy they have to move and eventually tries to pull him away, much to the protest of Roy. When Roy tries to grab Nathan, believing his supervisor is attacking him, Nathan pushes him off only for the lifting hook to crash in the panel Roy is standing on and impaling his head on the hook in the fall. When Nathan goes to check on Roy, he realizes what he has done as Sam, Molly, and Peter arrive. Nathan explains what happened and they suggest that he might have claiming Roy's remaining lifespan. Nathan is freaked out by his suggestion and asks him how he is so sure. As Sam explains that there is an order to the death, Molly asks who would be next then. Just as Dennis arrives demanding to know what happened, Dennis asks what happened to Roy just as Peter repeats Molly's question. The question is quickly answered as the wrench Roy was using and placed near a belt sander falls and is launched at Dennis, hitting him in the face. It is driven halfway in his head at eye level. As Sam goes to work at a restaurant that evening, he asks his supervisor if he could reserve the restaurant for a date with Molly, something the supervisor allows him. Unbeknownst to Sam and Molly, Peter has grown paranoid by his imminent death and the idea that he will not be able to stop death. He decided to take Bloodworth to heart and goes out to take a life, seeing how Sam is already doomed and he lost Kandick himself due to Sam's premonition. He decided that he will go for Molly. He enters the restaurant and attacks Molly. He draws a gun and starts firing, but to his annoyance, both Sam and Molly escape to the restaurant's kitchen. The gunshots to alert Agent Block, however, who is standing outside the restaurant. When he goes to investigate, he is shot fatally by Peter. However, relieved by the fact that he has beaten death, he draws the conclusion that it would be waste to spend the rest of his life in jail and decided to kill both Sam and Molly. Without witnesses and safe from death, there is nothing that will stop him from living his life again to the fullest. In the struggle, he dropped the gun on a hot stove. Unable to get his gun, he grabbed a kitchen knife as Molly jumped on his back. Although he is initially disarmed, he managed to fight her off and throw her against the ground. As he picks up the knife and walks towards her with the knife before he is going to stab her, he asks her to tell Candace he loves her. He failed to stab her, however, as Sam impales him through the back with a large rotisserie, killing him. Wondering if he now got Block's life, the gun on the stove fires, missing Sam by a mere inch. This confirms that he too has his life. 2 weeks later, Sam and Molly are boarding an airline to Paris as Sam has taken on a job at Miro 81. As they put their hand luggage away. They are disturbed a fight between two teenagers wondering what it was about. Sam looks at his tickets, revealing that their flight is Volley Airline Flight 180. The teenagers are Alex Browning and Carter Horton. Upon takeoff, they overhear a conversation between the stewardess and a woman, revealing that Alex had a vision of the airplane exploding. Realizing that the boy's vision is bound to happen, they are horrified by the realization that they will not escape this time. At that moment, the airplane motor explodes and the side of the airplane is starting to rip apart. Passengers are sucked out and eventually Molly, who was sitting at the window side, was stuck out as well, only to be bisected when she hit the tail wing. The rest of passengers amongst Sam die when the very explosion raked through the plane. The landing gear of the plane falls and descends to Earth. Meanwhile, the colleagues of Roy are holding a memorial attended by Nathan, who is still guilt ridden. A colleague claims that it might be better for Roy before revealing that Roy's autopsy, ordered by insurance company, revealed that Roy had a deadly brain aneurysm that would have burst and killed him any day now. Nathan asks him if this is true and he responds life's bitch before walking off. As Nathan realizes that this means death is still coming for him, the landing gear crashes through the roof and crushed Nathan to death, throwing his arm at the screen. The cast is Nicholas D'Agostino as Sam Lawton, Emma Bell as Molly Harper, Miles Fisher as Peter Fredson, Alan Ward as Candace Hopper, Jacqueline Wood as Olivia Castle, PJ Byrne as Isaac Palmer, Aaron as Nathan Sears, David as Dennis Lapman. In March 2010, the head of Warner Bros. Revealed Final Destination 5 was in works. Later, producer Craig Perry confirmed that just as the Final Destination, the film would be shot in 3D. On April 2010, it was announced that Eric Hester would be the screenwriter. In June 2010, Stephen Cole was announced by New Line Cinema to be the director. The film was supposed to be released on August 26, 2011, but they later changed it to August 12, 2011. The producer aimed to make the film darker and more suspenseful than the previous installments, trying to recapture the feel of the first film once again. The first character that was cast was Peter Fredkin in August 2010. For the role, they went with actor and musician Miles Fisher, who is most famous for acting in short films and a small role in the comedy film superhero movies. Fisher would later say that although he had done some work in television and film, but 3D was whole another thing. Arlen Escarpeta was the second to be cast, this for the role of Nathan. Later, Nicholas D'Agostino and Alan Moore were cast as Sam and Candace respectively. The biggest reveal, however, was the return of Tony Todd to reprise his role of William Bloodworth. David Kochar and PJ Byrne was announced to have joined the cast on August 30, 2010, while the female lead Molly got an actress in Emma Bell on September 2. Jacqueline Mack Wood and Courtney Wood joined the cast as Olivia Castle and Jim Block respectively in mid-September of the year. Just like the original three films, location filming took place in Vancouver, British Columbia once again. It was also here that the opening scene would be filmed, as the North Bay Bridge was modeled after the Lionsgate Bridge in Vancouver. The principal photography took place between September 13 and December 14, 2010. The soundtrack to Final Destination 5 contains 19 tracks, once again composed by Brian Taylor, who also composed the soundtrack of the previous installment. On its opening weekend, Final Destination 5 made $18 million domestically, ranking it the third grossing of the weekend behind Rise of the Planet of the Apes and The Help being number 1 and 2 respectively. In the series, it was the third biggest opening behind the Final Destination and Final Destination 3. The film made $42 million domestically and $157 million worldwide, making it the second most successful film in the franchise, with the Final Destination being the most successful. On December 27, 2011, it was released on DVD and Blu-ray disc, with the Blu-ray coming out in two forms: the movie-only edition and the Blu-ray disc ultraviolet edition. 3D edition for Blu-ray was originally released as a Best Buy exclusive. Generally speaking, the film received positive reviews with a 61% positive rating on reviews aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, landing on average 5.8 out of 10 by the critics and 5.2 out of 10 by site visitor, making it the first and only film in the franchise to have a fresh rating. The mainstream critics from Metacritic gave it a 50% based on 24 reviews. It was, however, criticized for failing to be truly inventive in the franchise, missing good character development and lacking memorable dialogue. It was, however, praised for being an improvement over the previous installment and for its use of 3D visual and creative death scene. Other praiseworthy features were the departure of the companies and the return of suspenseful as the disaster scene at the beginning and end. The 3D feature garnered notable praise of reviewers Richard Topper, Linda Barnett, and Todd Glitches, with the last claiming to be the best 3D horror movie ever. The poster of Final Destination 5 attracted quite a lot of controversy in the UK. I have a bad feeling about these characters. Final Destination 5 is one of those rare movies where the title itself is a spoiler. Yes, everyone in the movie dies except for Connor Bloodworth, but you know that because of the previous 4 films, the increasingly challenging task for the filmmaker is to devise ever more horrible and gruesome methods for them to be slaughtered. FD5 shows a lot of ingenuity. The recurring theme this time will be sequering and lots of it. The characters have names, but they might as well be called after atoms for a shish kebab. Lamb, chicken, mushroom, onions, tomatoes, some nice peppers. I like to use green, red and yellow. We get a tip off in the opening credit which use 3D to thrust things at the audience before we have seen so much as a human face on the screen. We have been assaulted by skewers, knives, rods, stakes and sharps of glasses. This is the ping pong effect elevated to aggressive excess, a reminder that if we have not already put on our annoying dark glasses, this is the time to bid farewell to bright colors. We have already bid farewell to the 3D premium charge. The actors in a movie like this are essentially doing product placement by getting their names and faces out there. In a splatter movie, they can perhaps catch the eye of a casting agent and get a shot at a decent film. They have studied their craft, they have struggled and dreamed, they have attended countless auditions. Now at last they have a role in a major Hollywood release and can call home. Mom, I get impaled by the most of the sailboat after I fall off a bridge. The fact is, the performances here are all effective. The actors bring more to the film than it brings to them. The caliber of performance in gruesome death movies has considerably improved since Herschel Gordon Lavish made the Gore Girls. The direction by Stephen Coyle is efficient and the special effects do an excellent job of beheading, incinerating, vivisecting, sketching, and so on. I am amused by this critic screenplay by Eric Hessler based on characters created by Geoffrey Reddick. Reddick, of course, was the writer of the original Final Destination, since all of the characters in the film were dead by movie's end. This credit might more reasonably have read because on character killed by Joffrey Reddick. I speak too soon, Bloodworth always survive. His task to find over more ominous ways of saying I told you so. Reddick should also be given full credit for devising the ingenious logic of the first film, which consisted of many proofs that we cannot cheat death. This truth struck the original character with a force that has now been much diluted. You don't appear in a Final Destination movie and expect to get out alive. I expect this movie to make a lot of money at the box office, spent by fans eager to see still more cool ways for hot younger character to be slaughtered. My review will not be read by any of these people. They don't know what they enjoy. They don't want no damned movies with damned surprises. I am always pleased when moviegoers have a good time. Perhaps they will turn to a theater and someday see a good movie by accident and it will start them thinking. Final Destination 5, despite the fact that the Final Destination series was supposed to have come to an end with Final Destination 4, here we are again. New round of kids, some old specter, oh death, always up to some sort of Rube Goldberg's shenanigans. By now, this franchise has established itself as the go-to series for seeing people killed in inventive, gruesome ways. And there's nothing wrong with that. But Final 4 was genuinely terrible, the first film in series to make me question whether or not all the scenes that were not drenched in viscera were worth suffering through in order to get to the money shots. Would Final Destination 5 return the franchise to its not great, not even good, but watchable for the kill's glory? Find out. None of the Final Destination films are referred to by their actual titles but by the characteristics of the big ass accident that kickstart each film. Final Destination 2, for instance, is the car wrench one, while Final Destination 5 is the roller coaster one. Final Destination 4, the NASCAR one, was the one that seems to kill the franchise off once and for all, largely because of the film's awful script and the somehow even more awful acting that permeated the film. Just try getting through the film's opening 10 minutes without wanting to punch every actor on screen in the face. But also because, well, this was the fourth iteration of the series and everything's gotta wrap up sooner or later, right? That's what line knew cinema through anyway. They had insisted on calling the fourth film the Final Destination and came this close to releasing it directly to DVD. Then they said, what the hell, dropped it into theaters and made a surprising amount of money during the flick's opening weekend. That, of course, led to the bridge disaster one, and well, here we are, staring down the barrel of a fifth go around with the world's unlikeliest horror franchise, just even more unlikely than the Saw franchise. Upon learning that the franchise was taking a victory lap, I was not thrilled, but the possibilities inherent in Final Destination Death Scene Plus 3D was pretty compelling, and at worst, these films have always been watching at least once. The Bridge Disaster one is definitely the best Final Destination the series have seen in a long while, probably the best since the second, and maybe just as good. But I am sad to report that the viewing experience is not as fun at home as it was in the theaters. For one thing, these films are always best enjoyed with a sharing crowd. For another, New Line has made the curious decision to release the Bridge Disaster 1 in 2D. I just bought a big ass 3D LED television about a month ago, and while I have been using the set primarily for gaming, you should see Arkham Asylum and Assassin's Creed in 3D, your face will melt. I will confess that I was kind of hoping to see the Bridge Disaster 1 at home in 3D. I cannot imagine this will be a common complaint, however, as most people still don't own 3D TVs. Otherwise, through the ones one of the better Final Destination films and has the distinction of being the only film in the franchise that actually gave me nightmares. It was the laser eye surgery scene which plays upon a very particular fear I have of anything being jammed into my ocular cavities. Not your mom has the same fear. Once again, a group of teenagers narrowly escape death, and once again, two or three of their friends are killed off by the looming on-screen specter of death before they realize that something amiss is, and once again they are forced to speak to Tony Todd in order to figure out what the hell is going on. Finding out how the script will work a Tony Todd appearances into each new Final Destination is one of the series' strangest, most satisfying highlights. The kills are grislier in this one, and I remember them being in installments past, and by the end, just about everyone's dead. You know what you are getting into here. The only thing that really changes from film to film is the accident that kicks off the plot, as it were. In this one, it's a massive bridge collapse. This scene is probably the highlight of the film, with the possible exception of that skill storm inducing eyeball scene, and appears to be where most of the film's budget went. There's a level of quality on display in this sequence that not readily apparent in some of the other scenes, particularly in some of the obvious set building that's been done by director Stephen Coyle. It may also be worth noting that I found the character in this one of more unlikable as a group and individually than any other Final Destination cast. Did this make the kill scene even better? I suspect it did, particularly for the loudmouth Dutch nozzle that gets his in an acupuncture clinic. One final note, no pun intended, I really like the ending on this one. Very clever indeed, and completely unexpected the first time I saw the film. If you have been holding off on seeing this one but you have at least seen the first film in the series, the ending alone is worth renting this one for. The extras are scant, a few behind the scene features on the film's bigger disaster scene, a few alternate death scenes, no commentary, the video quality solid, and the film runs at a quick 92 minutes. Beyond all that, however, I am finding it difficult to come up with much to say about this one. Either the Final Destination films blow your skirt up or they don't. If you have been amused by the series in the past, this one's certainly worth a rental, but I honestly cannot imagine this one's worth owning for non-completeds anyway, unless they are also releasing a 3D version. Final Destination 5, 11 years into the franchise, and audience know what to expect when they buy a ticket to Final Destination 5. The latest in the series is a solid, fun installment that delivers what the fans want: over the top, elaborate, and violently cartoonish death scene in 3D because the kids love 3D. The review of the movie: Nicholas D'Agosto, heroes fared up stars as Sam, who met while he is on his way to corporate retreat with a busload of co-workers, including his newly estranged girlfriend Molly, The Walking Dead's Emma Bell. While the bus is idling thanks to construction on a bridge, Sam has the requisite Final Destination premonition, seeing the horrific bridge collapse that is about to occur, killing them all. Sam's warning about what is going to happen are heeded by a select few of his co-workers, and well, you know the rest. The bridge does indeed collapse, and those who survive count themselves lucky to be alive until they begin dying one by one, because you cannot cheat death. When a formulaic series gets to movie number 5, you begin to appreciate any little different that set it apart from the rest. Thus, I was happy and rather surprised to discover the main character in Final Destination 5 were all adults working at a paper company. Not one high school kid in the bunch. Okay, the vast majority of the cast, including Miles Fisher, Jacqueline, Erlyn, Jasprita, and Alan Vuru, happen to be young and attractive, but that's par for the course. By the way, the fact that having any story focusing on the employee of a paper company is not going to evoke The office does not seem lost on the filmmakers who amusingly cast Todd Fisher himself, David Kosher as the office manager. I enjoyed PJ Bryant's goofy performance as the guy in the office who is luscious, thieving, and casually racist, and thus just asking for a nice long prog death scene. Yes, of course, the bread and butter of the series are the death, the glorious death, and Final Destination 5 have some excellent one. We know exactly when these sequences are begging even without the flickering light and sparky wind and such, and it all become more the crawling anticipation, followed by the big payoff. The screw that seems ready to rip off the gripping water, the unintended machine throughout the film. Director Stephen Coyle does a great job of setting the scene and creating a nice amount of tension as we near the inevitable moment of doom for these characters, which often include a bit of a savor when it comes to what seems likely to be the most obvious cause of their demise. Kitchens, factories, LASIK, surgery office, college gymnastics. Once again, this series will make you afraid of doing, well, anything, anywhere, lets you be final distinctions to death. It's nice to see the always cool Tony Todd reprise his role as Bloodworth, the mysterious coroner who always knows more than he should about his whole death as a plain thing. Except for an audio cameo in the third film, Todd's been MIA from his series since Final Destination 2. Upon his return, he brings a ton of his visual gravity, humor, and menace to the role. Through having seen him show up for a scene here and there now in three Final Destination movies, I hope the next sequel, come on, you know it's coming, might finally go a bit more into the backstory on his overly knowledgeable fellow. Screenwriter Eric Hessier, the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, does a serviceable job hitting the beats we all expect from the series. Let's face it, these movies are about getting from set piece to set piece, and no one watching really cares if Sam and Molly can work out their relationship woes. The one major new element this movie is out in the idea that if these survivors kill someone else, then they can save themselves. It's an intriguing new addition to the storyline. I wish a bit more had been done with it and that we had seen more of the characters have some true turmoil over this potential out rather than use it to fuel a bit of a psycho slasher conclusion that seems a bit forced. Fortunately, the very ending of Final Destination 5 contains a clever little turn of events that is an affectionate nod to the history of the series, which is appreciated considering the Final Destination series have had almost no ties to one another since the second film. Final Destination 5 is much improved installment of the series on the heels of the terrible fourth film, The Final Destination, and an example of getting what you pay for is a suitably satisfying manner. Now let's talk about the 3D. Since like with the fourth film, it's a much touted aspect of the movie that the studio is pushing hard. Personally, I am sick to death of 3D. I have seen great 3D and I have seen crappy 3D, but in the past 2 years it's all become, well, a blur as I have simply seen too much 3D, and I hate to argue what the king of the world James Cameron, but the vast majority of the time I don't find 3D to be all that immersive and to help draw me into a film I find in distancing. Even when it's well done, it makes me hyper aware of the technical aspect of the film and the fact that I am sitting there wearing uncomfortable glasses rather than simply getting swept up in the story like a great movie can do. Cameron has also spoken out against gotcha type 3D, the classic B movie horror movie use of 3D, where things just and spoke out at you, often comically drawing attention to themselves in the process, which is amusing because Final Destination 5 director Coyle is a Cameron Prestige who has worked on a ton of his films and co-director Ghost of the Deep with Cameron, and yet he is making exactly the kind of 3D movie Cameron has complained about. And guess what? It looks great. Coyle knows his way around the technology. He was a second junior director on Avatar and uses it in a very effective and clever ways. At this point, being so burned out on 3D in general, Final Destination 5 is the only kind of 3D movie that I can have a lot of fun with because no one is going to see the movie to get immersed in a complex story and characters. But seeing some poor girls intensities shot out at the camera in 3D now that just a good time at the movies. So yes, in a summer where I have basically scorned 3D altogether, I can endorse Final Destination 5 and say 3D is the best way to see this movie even though the higher price still sucks. Final Destination 5, the movie released in 2011 and it was cast in 3D. This movie is the fifth installment in the Final Destination movie. So, what are the reviews of the movie? Sometimes you get and sometimes you just wanted to watch the movie, but first you wanted to confirm that what is this about. Final Destination is a very horror movie, and there were a lot of things I didn't expect from Final Destination 5. First off, I didn't really expect it to happen, but it did. So, right out of the gate, it defies my expectation. Was there really such a big audience just clamoring for a fifth chapter that they had to make this film? The second thing I did not expect was I would enjoy Final Destination 5, but I lower as hell did. I guess that's what I get for making assumption I made an ass out of you, me, and option. Final Destination 5 is not a good movie by any means. In fact, in many ways, it is barely competent, but good damn, it is a lot of fun. The story is very near non existence. An office goes on a weekend business date. This particular office just so happened to be staffed exclusively good looking early 20s something that could all pass for teens. Final Destination 5 looked like the episode of One Three Hills. One of the cameras, let's call him the protagonist, has a vision of their grisly demise when a bridge collapses beneath their charter bus. He freaks out and somehow convinces his friend to get off the bus just before his hallucination comes true with frightening accuracy. Since death doesn't like to be cheated, you know this because the creepy corner sits. So, in every installment in the Final Destination franchise, the survivors start to drop one by one in increasingly grisly fashion. There are some card-study attempts to give the actors some sort of character to play or add an actual plot, but Final Destination 5 doesn't try very hard. What the film does have, however, is a long string of some of the best movie death you have seen in a long time, all in 3D. From where I stand, this is best possible use of 3D. When I put on these awkward, uncomfortable glasses, I want to see random things flying out of the screen. I want glass to shatter and share to come at me. I want a car to fall off a bridge and land on my face. I don't care about bringing some imaginary part to life in front of me and making me feel as I am right there. I don't give a crap about that. I want needle and rubber and flying debris in every few moments. A collapsing suspension bridge is perfect use of 3D technology, but with cable snapping, saws being sliced in half, and boiling tar pouring over a Saturday Night Live alumnus. The tension in Final Destination 5 comes from two sources. First, what you already know from the earlier films. Why waste time laying the groundwork of a story when all of the important things have already come in the four movies that came before? Final Destination 5 stands securely on those shoulders. The other source of tensions come from the Rube Goldberg's like death sequence, each one in a series of long, slow shots where the camera pans around and shows seemingly every possible thing that could go wrong. You know someone is going to die, but what you are trying to figure out is how, and they unfold in complex, seemingly random ways. And they're going to step out the upturned screw, catapult into the air, and land on the ground, apparently safe, only to be crushed to death. A failing air conditioner unit in the massage table going to buckle as their cell phone vibrates, knocking a candle into a pool of spilled alcohol. Final Destination 5 spends most of his time and energy setting up these situations. You know what's going to happen, but not how, and the how is what keeps you interested. I will not spoil any of the death for you, but Final Destination 5 does a good job keeping them fresh, again defying expectation, and a big and the death all make wonderful, and solely James Cameron excellent use of the 3D technology. Aside from the death, Final Destination 5 is cheesy, ridiculous, and stupid, but in the best possible way. Every story element, every character, every plot point is totally hunched and recycled. Like the guy who wants to go to cooking school in Paris but doesn't want to leave his girlfriend, so she break up with him in order to make his choose the path that will lead to this happiness. It's a total divert, but you will laugh your ass off, and just when you're tired of the story, just when it is about to become annoying and not funny anymore, and the pace start to shake. Someone dies in spectacular fashion. It's a win-win. Final Destination 5 is a perfect movie to see in a drive-in or a crowded theater or drunk with a bunch of friends. There's no motivation and no attempt to figure out what is going on. In fact, when Tony Todd shows up out of the blue and tells the characters that death is out to even the score, they just accept his word as gospel truth about questions. That dude said it, people are dying, so it must be true. The shot of tried to stop it, but not really. Final Destination 5 is wall to wall impalings, eyes popping out all over the place, and wooden post teen actors dying in horrific entertaining ways. There's not much else, but what the hell more do you want out of the schlocky horror flicks? Final Destination 5 is not good, not even close, but it is completely and totally awesome. Final Destination 5, you are either excited that there's another Final Destination film out, or you are not. And if you are in the farmer group, that you are going to see Final Destination 5, and if you are in the latter group, you are probably not going to see Final Destination 5, kind of makes my reviews a bit irrelevant. I suppose I can say that if you are right about the franchise attempting to change anything at all, because itself you should not be. This is the Final Destination we have all come to know and love, and it delivers on exactly what it promised to deliver on. Death, guts, the most creative kills around, and a plot you could literally not have around. You probably think there is not more to say, but there is. The real beauty of the Final Destination series is that they are the same movie every single time, just with different people to kill, but in this one series case, that's really good thing. The entire point of this slasher series to kill people in the most dramatic, absurd, and gory way possible, and this time in 3D. If you tune into these of a plot lines, you are going to be seriously disappointed. The simple fact that the creature of the series' main villain is not even a character but just a weak notion of death perfectly shows what the focus of these films are. One of the best parts of the series is that all the characters get to die twice. The first time we get to see how they would all die if death was not avoided, and then we get to see them all die again throughout the film. This had led to some the greatest and one of the well opening sequence in any genre of the film ever. If you have seen the entire series, you will be happy to know that Final Destination 5's opening sequence almost rivals the second film's amazing car crash. This time around, there's a group of 20 something headed to a company retreat when the bridge there on suddenly begin to collapse. Luckily for six of the people, Sam Lawton had a vision of their death and gets them off the bridge in the nick of time. Of course, Death is not happy about this and starts to come after them is covolted in not so coveted ways. The best part of the series is attempting to figure out how each person is going to die in a gory mess. The funniest kills throughout the film are great not because of their 3D gore, but because of the anticipation of their 3D gore. Final Destination 5 might handle this better than any of its predecessors at times, especially with the kill involving a rusty screw and a gymnast feat. That's not to say that the film is not full on gore. Almost every elaborate kill costed the screen in blood and cuts, and even when they didn't really need to show it, they do anyway. I'm not sure if this film features the cleverest kill of the series, but it definitely has some of the bloodiest. It's very clear that this for the filmmakers completely gave up on a story and focused all the attention on killing people. So it seems for most of the film, especially when the Candyman himself, Tony Todd, returned to the series once again just to be a creepy crooner and give exposition. Brilliant casting, by the way. By the end of the film, however, you will realize that the movie has been much smarter than you have given it credit for. That's a twist here that you most likely will not see coming, but that they have brilliantly hinted at throughout the film. It will give any Final Destination fan a real kick, as will the opening credit sequence, which basically gives you a rundown of every murder implement ever used in all the previous films. This is definitely one of the more fan-friendly iterations of the series. Usually, I would not mention 3D in passing class, but for me, the slasher genre is one of the only reasons 3D film should exist. The Chinese of 3D work so incredibly well with the over-the-top styling of slasher films. They don't have to pretend like they are taking it seriously, and its stunts can fling blood, partly objects, and anything else that protrudes dramatically right out of the screen like they just don't give a damn. Final Destination 5 does this to a great effect. The first kill of the film is especially fantastic in 3D and almost has the audience on its feet, applauding while groaning with disgust. I rarely say this, but 3D is well worth the price of admission for the film. If you cannot tell, I am a major fan of the Final Destination movies, but I understand that some people may not be. For them, this movie offers absolutely nothing. If you thought the first four films didn't work, then this one is not going to work for you either, and the film's twist will probably fall incredibly flat. These movies are about enjoying death and kills so outlandish that you can applaud and laugh in shock. It's not about being scary, and it's not about shocking you with torture. Final Destination is simply about stupid fun. If you had stupid fun at the first four movies, you will have it at this one. If you didn't, well, I like the helped as well. Final Destination 4V is the fifth installment in the Final Destination franchise. The movie is released in 2011. The movie was seen as part of the Movie Feast, the rather wonderful film festival organized by Vincent and everybody else over at Movies.e. It was well worth attending, and I am already looking forward to next year. Good job, all. If you are reading this, I'm going to assume that it means you are interested in the Final Destination series. I mean, at a fifth installment. It's hard to argue that the audience doesn't know what to expect, especially in a series like this, which is built around a particular gimmick. In this case, the gimmick happened to be turning the entire world into a cube Galbex machine of death. So the question is not really whether the film works as a self-contained entity or whether the entire concepts work. We have had four films to determine whether the very idea of Final Destination 5 appeals to you. So let's just focus on, if you will pardon the pun, the execution this time around. For the record, I have a bit of the soft spot of Final Destination, the original film in the series. It was at the time a rather clever little concept in a horror subgenre that was rapidly focused on torture and serial killers to keep it alive. All credit to James Wong and Galen Morgan. It was a good idea, it was inventive and quirky, and dare I say it, original in a genre that had seems stale for a quite some time, so I am not adhere to the core idea, even if the law of diminishing return does set in after 5 films. To be honest, I mostly recall the quirky death rather than remembering any of the film. So I remember bits like the death inside a tanning salon or a crazy highway crash or a sudden ambulance smashing out of stage left. I could not place any of these deaths in the context of a film, but they made an impact on me based on the simple fact I can remember them. So that's really the standard of the grim set pieces that we are looking at. I'd argue that at least one and maybe two deaths match the short of memorability factor. I don't think it's possible to spell them since the movie is candid about what if not how a character is about to die. But let's just say I'm not contemplating laser eye surgery anytime soon and leave it at that. So that's not bad. For a film with 8 death sequences to produce 2 that rank with probably the most messed up for a series, the rest are just okay and some are downright disappointing. But I suppose you are really playing the law of average here. However, I really don't remember the last few films being quite so sop of luck of a better word. There's a whole host of romantic angst going on, and the movies invest a considerable amount of time in trying to get us to care about a relationship between two characters. Of course, this is not because the producers are turning into old sophists of so many years, so an indicator of a bold new direction of the series, but it does feel a bit pointless when the movie doesn't have the strongest cast. The writing and the acting, not to mention the basic premise of the series, makes the audience less likely to care about the characters in question. While we are on the acting, this is not setting a new standard, but it feels like a huge waste to cast David Koshker in a film like this and then do next to nothing with him. I have to admit the movie does feel remarkably functional. The kids in question seem to expect the basic premise of the movie without too much uncertainty, and Tony Todd's ominous corner seems to be growing a little bit impatient of dealing with kids like this. I have seen this before, he states, not going into too much details. I know that the characters need to catch up with the audience who don't want to sit through a whole host of exposition again. But it does feel a little strange again. One gets the sense that the acting or the writing could have been tightened up a bit. That said, the movie does have two short of semi-clever twist on the basic idea. The first is established relatively early on by Tony Todd's crime official and suggests that while death doesn't like to be cheated, it is possible to transfer your one-way ticket to afterlife with death seemingly being situated by any repeatedly cooling body. How Todd knows these things, I have no idea. Maybe the dude likes to knock by a six pack with the Grim Reaper while watching weekend football or something, I don't know. Anyway, the introduction of the idea that you can kill somebody and at the remaining time they would have had makes of an interesting twist. You had think that the premise would wrangle a bit of drama from a series running the risk of turning stale, but instead it's just used as a cheap gimmick to push the movie to a somewhat awkward climax. I'm not going to spoil it, but the character machines of the film feel far more convoluted than the random series of current events that seems to lead to give demise. The idea, however interesting it might be, feels somewhat wasted on the film. It's also, along with the final twist that I don't spell here, makes that seems like a rather lazy and incompetent worker. The film opens with character joking about not making sales number, and part of me wonder if there's a similar bureaucrat force at work behind the Grim Reaper in these series of films. In fairness to the final twist, it is set up remarkable well over the course of the film, including a sly reference at funeral that perhaps only the nice nit might spot. It does feel quite fair the way that the movie set up that twist, even if I am not necessarily convinced of the brilliance of the twist itself, but enough taking its abstract riddles. The film is offered in 3D, and I have to admit that I am a bit disappointed. Surely, the idea of objects flying out of the screen left right and center in the time of cheap hook the technology was made for. There's no shame in it, that's why Flight Night worked so well. However, I could take my glasses off rapidly through the film without seeing any tangible difference. In fairness, the opening credit to make good use of the gimmick, throwing glass and sharp objects directly into our faces. Even if the stupid getting rain, the risk of giving me a headache, we even get a gag reel style completion, a gag reflex reel of the franchise credit sits toward the end of the film, in which the post conversion seems to have consisted entirely of inserting CGI glass into the shots. For a movie suited to this sort of effects work, I was seriously let down. In the end, Final Destination 5 managed to add one, maybe two memorable death sequences to the franchise canon. That's really the best of it. Whether or not that's enough, you are probably best to decide for yourself. It's hard to argue that the movie is objectively weaker than any of its predecessors, but I think a lot of the initial enthusiasm has since departed. Final Destination 5, while traveling on a work retreat, Sam Lawton has a premonition that he and his friends will die on a collapsing bridge. He shepherds them all to safety, but the Grim Reaper cannot be cheated for long. The movie is released on August 26, 2011. Running time is 91 minutes, with Terrence Malick urging cinema to engage with the big question. So, Final Destination 5, the latest installment in the Death finds a way horror franchise takes up the mantle of the Tree of Life to encore of the universe. Who dies on a massage table? PG brands Isaac as it happens third of the film's Death Cheaters, whose unfortunate passing comes scare of the conflation of acupuncture needles, cleaning fried low screws, something of a FD Mofif vibrating cell phone candle and small statue of Buddha. More of the same then for the QI of Corefest, you are supposed to think of the wrong answer. A little varier, a little less imaginative. A gym-based routine essentially adds up to a mistimed adding a lot less witty and devoid of character, atmosphere, subplot of drama, just the psycho thrill of seeing how they buy it coming at 3D. Frustratingly, debutant actor Steve Coyle seems to lack faith in the core concepts. Look, no bad guy who need the role explain again. We get at a kill list of rent-a-teens scotch a paranoid exit on a collapsing bridge, given a splendidly gore-dressed rehearsally only for death to catch up one by one via an elaborate equation of nearby health hazards. And really, who needs crappy Tony Todd as some kind of embassy of death and the role enhancement that Doomed can cheat death again by killing another only diverts the formula into a distracting bit of stop the psycho. Death needs a rethink. One of the greatest horror movie plot twists of all time made this underwhelming sequel worth it. One of the greatest horror movie plot twists of all time, Final Destination 5 was able to save its underwhelming reputation, making the fifth installment worth the watch. Known for their elaborate setup, the Final Destination franchise has produced five memorable films so far, with the sixth movie, Final Destination Bloodlines, on the horizon as well. Following a set formula, Final Destination contains some of the more ridiculous death, providing a unique take on the horror genre through its lack of a physical villain and heavy focus on the inexplicability of fate. Each installment in the horror franchise is driven by different characters trying to use Final Destination death rule to cheat their inevitable fate, with new rules being added over time. Final Destination 5 established a different approach to the usual formula by introducing an interesting death rule which set it apart from other films, as Final Destination 5 was trying to recover the franchise from the disappointing reception of the Final Destination, the fourth and supposed last Final Destination movie. It is no surprise that the fifth horror movie entry also introduced a shocking twist to win audience over. Final Destination 5's timeline twist made the movie better in hindsight. Final Destination 5 featured a timeline twist which, in hindsight, made the movie better. At the end of Final Destination 5, Sam and Molly, who have managed to escape death for 2 extra weeks, notice a fight between some high school students as they board a plane to Paris. In a surprising development, the students are revealed to be Carter Horton and Alex Browning. Makes the flight they are boarding Wally Airlines Flight 180 from the first Final Destination. This means that Final Destination 5, which fans thought to be a sequel, is actually a prequel to the whole franchise. Had they not included the shocking timeline twist in Final Destination 5, the movie may have followed the Final Destination disappointing fate. Ultimately, Final Destination 5's big reveal made the movie much more enjoyable as the rest of the film was fairly standard. Despite Final Destination 5 having the second highest kill count, a new death rule, and the best CGI, it mostly follows the usual formula and was marketed as the final film, leading people to expect more of the same. Had they not included the shocking timeline twist in Final Destination 5, the movie may have followed the Final Destination disappointing fate. Therefore, when the ending introduced one of the best horror movie plot exists, it revitalized the movie. Final Destination 5's ending was great, but the movie was disappointing. While Final Destination 5 ending was great, the overall film was disappointing. Final Destination 5 follows a group of co-workers who defy their fated death in a bridge collapse and spend the rest of the movie trying not to die. Tony Todd returns as William Bratworth in this movie for the first time since Final Destination 2, presenting a new or old depending on how it is viewed. Death through death can be cheated by taking someone else's life. The setup makes the movie stand out from previous Final Destination film as it introduced a moral debate for the characters. Final Destination 68% rating, Final Destination 2 58% ratings, Final Destination 3 57% ratings, The Final Destination 35% rating, Final Destination 5 53% ratings. However, despite the new death rule, timeline twist, and use of adult character as opposed to the usual teen protagonist, Final Destination 5 has a 53% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, making it the second lowest rated Final Destination movie after the Final Destination. Audience complained that Final Destination 5 was rather predictable up until the ending. The characters were underdeveloped and that some of the deaths overly relied on CGI, making them look cheap. Therefore, it appears that the Final Destination franchise may need a different story in Final Destination 6 reboot in order to rectify the fifth film reputation. Final Destination going full circle set the stage for a reboot. Final Destination 5's timeline twist set the franchise full circle by trying it up with the original film, setting the stage for a reboot. As a result of Final Destination 5 being a surprise prequel, it wrapped the franchise up quite nicely. Therefore, when Final Destination 6 was confirmed, audiences were skeptical about how well the next movie might do considering the fatigue felt in the previous two films. However, after 12 years hiatus, the Final Destination franchise may experience a bit more success, especially with Freak co-directors Zach Leposky and Adam B. Stein set to direct Final Destination 6. Although Final Destination 6 has been called a reboot, it is being treated as a reimagining for the Final Destination franchise. Creator Geoffrey Reddick has explained that the premise of Final Destination 6 will be different, steering away from the original formula, which is a good idea considering it has become overused. The cast has been announced with Tony Todd returning as Bloodworth, who will be a key part of the movie. Bloodworth was the expert on death rule in Final Destination, Final Destination 2, the Final Destination 5. Hopefully, the sixth installment will finally reveal his mysterious backstory. The ending of the movie Final Destination 5 finally explained. Horror movies are filled with all kinds of monsters from swamp things to werewolves and app returns. There are no shortage of things that go bump in the ride, but one film series has made an antagonist out of the scariest boogeyman of them all, the very concept of death itself. The Final Destination series maintains a simple premise. One person sees a premonition of an impending disaster. They are able to avoid said disaster along with the group of friends, acquaintances, and as we have heard for too many times before, death doesn't like to be cheated out of a life. One by one, the characters meet gruesome ends, often as a result of some coveted rude Kulberg's machination because death always come to collect. For many, the hallmark of the franchise comes with the 2011 installment Final Destination 5. It had some of the bloodiest death scene in the Final series. And while it's still up in the air whether we'll get Final Destination 6, this one serves as a worthwhile final. So, where exactly did the movie leave us? Here's all you need to understand about the ending of Final Destination 5. Final Destination 5 ends where the first film began. After going through an immeasurable amount of blood and death, everything seems to be looking for Sam and Molly. After having their relationship go through some serious back and forth throughout the movie, Sam decides it's finally time for them to travel to Paris for that cooking apprenticeship so he desperately wanted. Sadly, it doesn't seem like Paris is in the cards. When the two board a plane, they see a couple org at the front. Fans of the franchise will undoubtedly recognize them as Alex Browning and Carter Horton from the original Final Destination. In that film, Alex was the one with the premonition who foresaw the plane would explode mid-air. Sam and Molly are not lucky this time around as they remain on the plane when it takes off. Of course, Sam doesn't realize what's happening until it's too late, and the two doomed lovers try to survive to no avail one last time as the plane goes down. It provides a nice bit of symmetry to the series as a whole. It essentially functions as a continuous loop where the final file installment ends where the first one begins. That is, unless another installment comes along. This is the most traumatizing death in the Final Destination franchise. The Final Destination franchise might be in the horror genre, but despite that, audience watch the film with a sense of fun the catharsis horror is known for, where we can deal with one anxious by laughing at or even enjoying the most frightening things on screen is never more evident that in these films. It is sometimes hard not to laugh at the absurd ways the creator of these movies come up with to kill their characters. A guy getting disposed by a swimming pool train in the Final Destination or the tanning bed demise in Final Destination 3 are so over the top that we cannot take them seriously. They are gross and they make us cringe, but they are not truly frightening outside of the jump scare effect of the moment. Then there's Final Destination 5. The last film in the franchise has many twisted death scenes, but one moment in particular is so traumatizing and shocking that there is no fun and no love to be found. It takes until the very last scene for it to happen, but when you see it play out, it's a moment you will never forget even if you wish you could. Final Destination 5 is the best film in the franchise. The Final Destination franchise had a moneymaker throughout the 2000s, but while 2009 fourth film, The Final Destination made more money than any other film in the series. It's also seen as the least impressive of the series. It fit like a paint by number movies, introduce some bland character, kill them off the end. Much of the inventiveness of the first three movies was gone. The Final Destination was going through the emotions, the change with the fifth film in 2011, Final Destination 5. This one righted the wrong of that came before it. We cared about the character rather than seeing them as faded that only existed to die gruesome death. Then there were the kill themselves, which aimed to be more scary than silly. Final Destination 5 follows Sam, his ex-girlfriend Molly, and a group of friends who survived a brilliant short bridge collapse scene in the first act. As these movies always go, the ones who escape death is the beginning, and then stalked by it as the Grim Reaper looks to collect the ones who got away. The Final Destination movies are almost slasher films where the killer is not a man in a mask but the unfathomable afterlife itself. Some of the death scenes see one character crashing out of a high rise window and another being shot in the back of the head with a nail gun. The most disgusting death involves Sandis, a gymnast who takes a deadly fall that ends with a broken neck and spine. Her body twisted in the most gruesome of poses, still not even that can match what happens in the final. The Final Destination film gave audience a horror film they'd never seen before. Horror was not in a great state in 2000. The 80s slasher boom had led to a pretty uninspired early 1990s outside of classics like Candyman and was Craven New Nightmare. Then came another Wes Craven film in 1996. Scream reinvented the slasher movie and reignited the horror genre. After Scream came a cluster of copycats from I Know What You Did Last Summer to Urban Legend. Come 2000, however, the new trend was beginning to die out. Horror needed something fresh. Final Destination provided that. It gave audience that slasher movie vibe and gory death, but in a clever new package. Here, death itself was the antagonist, an invisible force out to collect those who escaped it. This gave us the unexpected with the formula we had not yet cracked. When people died in the most insane accident in Final Destination, it was truly frightening because it was new. Final Destination was bookended by an intriguing first and final act. The beginning sees a high school class boarding a plane set to fly to Paris. We follow these kids led by Devon Sawa's Alex as shockingly minute into the film. Everyone dies when the plane blows up. Of course, it's just Alex having a premonition, and when the snaps out of it, he and a few other students gets off the plane. He is treated like a crazy person until we watch from blows as the plane then explodes and take off. While every film offer would follow this formula, none could live up to the impact of the first time we saw it happens. Alex tries to find a way to beat death as everyone around him dies, but even he cannot make it as the first image sees a falling sign take his life. The twist ending of Final Destination 5 leads to a heartbreaking ending. The end of Final Destination 5 sees a reuniting Sam and Molly alive, the couple eating together alone after hours at a fancy restaurant Sam works at. Another remaining survivor from the opening bridge collapse, the not so likable Peter, is in bad shape. Candace, the poor gymnast who ended up a bloody pretzel, was his girlfriend. In these films, there is a way out of death's snare. If you kill someone else, you can trade your life for theirs. Peter wants to do this but doesn't have the courage until he shows up at the restaurant, deciding that she is going to shoot and kill Molly. Sam, being the hero of the movie, stops him in a long kitchen brawl before ramping a shiver through Peter's back, killing him. Sam has traded his life for Peter's breaking death hold on him. Molly had barely escaped the bridge collapse in the opening premonition, so she was never on death list. Both of them are going to make it. 2 weeks later, Sam and Molly board a plane to Paris where they are moving because Sam is due to start a culinary apprenticeship in the French city. Wait, they are on a plane to France. If you have seen the other films, you immediately start to get uncomfortable as Sam is putting his stuff in an overhead compartment. He hears a conversation and looks up. Some teenagers are being removed from the plane. These are not just any teens, these are the characters from the first film. The twist has been revealed. Final Decision 5 is not a sequel, it's a prequel. Sam and Molly are on the plane that blows up in the first Final Destination. Sam and Molly think nothing of it until the plane is in the air and Sam overhears a stewardess telling a passenger about the kid having a panic attack who wanted off the plane because he had some kind of vision. Fear crosses Sam's face, he knows what's happening and there's nothing he can do. They watch helplessly as an engine explodes and the fuselage begins to rip apart. Molly is sacked out of the plane, but it's not quick, with Sam holding on to her hand, trying to save her until she is ripped away and then split in half over the airplane wing. The plane then explodes in slow motion, the flames consuming Sam as he screams in agony. As if not, that's not enough, Nathan, another survivor who escaped death, is killed on the ground when the plane crashes and he is crushed by an engine. The Final Destination franchise has fun with its skill. They are made to make you squirm but also laugh at their slyness. Not here, Sam and Molly death are painfully tragic. Sure, many times the survivor die in the final scene, but not like this so helpless to escape. Sam and Molly were happy, we cared about them. They were not just character stereotypes but felt like real people. When they die, it's not out of nowhere. Instead, we see it coming even before they do and then have to wait. There's no jump scare, just a slowly winding dread. This deaths are not held back on either. It's not a quick one. Second splatter and cut to black. No, we see Molly screaming and hanging on for dear life. We see Sam screaming as fire takes him. It's brutal and grim and sad, with not an ounce of fun to be had and no love to be found. Final Destination 6 is in the work, but it's doubtful that it will have a sequel as painful and impactful as the final moments of Sam and Molly. Final Destination 5. Every death rule an exception. Final Destination explain the rule of death and how to escape its plan while also putting forth a new exception. In 2000, James Wong's supernatural horror film Final Destination was released and spawned an entire franchise that follows death and its supposedly unstable design. Occasionally, it breaks its own rules as well. Consisting of 5 films with a sixth in the making, the film follows a group of survivors after they narrowly escape a catastrophic accident. Final Destination explained that there are sport rules to cheat death, however, not all those rules panned out in the end. The first movie created the formula for every Final Destination movie that followed it. This formula being an individual having a premonition of how they and a group of people are going to die. They stop a portion of people from dying in the accident, then death catches up to them. In the first film, Alex Browning has a premonition of a plane crash, allowing him and several others to avoid the doomed flight. As a result, they become target to be taken out to complete Death Plane, but with every subsequent design of Death Plane comes flaws. As the franchise has progressed, new ways to cheat death have been discovered and debunked. When Alex and his friends get off Flight 180, he was able to retrace the events after premonition to determine that everyone who survived was dying in same order they did on the plane. Believing that their fate was inseparable, each survivor sat and waited for their time to die, but not without a fight. When death comes for Todd, his car becomes stuck on a set of trays as a train comes barreling down. Alex saves him. Instead of making another attempt on his life, death skips over to the next person, Billy. With death design broken, there was seemingly a way to escape the cycle.